At this point, we want to address a somewhat critical issue of the Cestui Que Vie trust account. It is a major part of why people are involving themselves in this field of research. It's a critical aspect of people being able to free themselves from the system and go from the public to the private. Now, you've given me some information which I believe comes from the Vatican Law book.
Yes.
Specifically, I'm referring to Canon Law 2057, which pertains to the Cestui Que Vie Trust and how the Vatican is supposed to act or conduct themselves when they are approached by a person who is, in fact, leaving the system to go private.
That's correct. The Vatican, of course, is the Vatican, which is the holder of all corporations. The Crown Corporation, any corporation on planet Earth, is incorporated with the Vatican as the holder of all corporate estates, and all corporate trusts are held by the Vatican as an institution. The Vatican is not a person or anything, it's just another huge big corporation, but it is the mother company holding all the other corporations. And obviously this Canon 2057, anybody can just Google that and look it up, and you'll find heaps and heaps of references to it, and it's also off the Vatican website.
Well, I might actually read to the viewers what Canon Law 2057 states, and then I might get your further opinions on the matter.
Very interesting.
Specifically, what it says is, quote, any administrator or executor that refuses to immediately dissolve a Cestui Que Vie trust upon a person establishing their status and competency is guilty of fraud and fundamental breach of their fiduciary duties, requiring their immediate removal and punishment.
Yes. Now this is quite interesting, because there's a particular word here that pops up which says is guilty of fraud and fundamental breach of the fiduciary duties. Now let's forget about the fraud for now. The fiduciary duty means your interest need to be put in front of their own. So if somebody is my fiduciary, they've got to meet my needs before I can meet my own needs. They've got to look after me.
That entails a sense of responsibility
Absolutely.
on their part towards you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So government or the private institution pretending to be a government, they took on the fiduciary duty and they usurped the original government that actually was a de jure government that exists, that did all of that for us. But as trustees of the trust, they've got a duty towards us. And everything that we are paying for all the time should be coming from the trust fund that was created, as with them as the trustees, to pay for all our bills, all our fines, all the licensing, all the taxes. It's not our obligation. Those are their bills that they need to pay, not us. But they made us the debtor in the system through the birth certificate fraud, and out of that came the surname, which is the debtor in the trust account, which is what all this writing of how to write your name, the live life claim, and this complete process is all about.
So the trustee holds those fiduciary duties
Absolutely.
and responsibilities
Yes.
towards you as a
Yes.
person exiting the public system into the private.
Absolutely, they hold that all the time, even if you don't exit the system from the private. But they, because of the role playing in court that they do, the magistrate is your fiduciary, but he reverses the role and he makes us the trustee. You see, because when they ask you what is your name and you say your name, they write your name down on the court records in full, all capitals, all uppercase typing, which is not you, that's the corporation, and that is the trick that has been done in the court. Now that's been covered very well by Romley and by the Rossa channel in the past. People can go back and relook at those videos. This is just the Cestui Que Vie Act itself, obviously, that still looks like this. This is off the England's UK website. You can still look this one up. It's still legit, it's still standing, it's still valid, absolutely 100%. And section 4 is the interesting one. Section 4 says, if the supposed dead man proved to be alive, then the title is revested. Action for mean profits with interest. And this is where the Canon 2057 comes in, and where the fraud comes in. Because these assets in trust, all the time that were held in trust, those assets are me and you. Our bodies, our corpses, our corporate entity has been held in trust as a bonded surety against which the currency in the system is being printed. So we are the collateral against the money that we spend all the time. We are the capital. And they traded upon our bodies and converted that energy into money that they profited from. They did stuff with that money without telling us about it and traded upon our trust accounts. The profits that they made from those accounts should have been coming to us all the time as shareholders in the global estate. The minerals from the Australian mines should be come back into Australian soil. Do they? No. The garbage that gets exported to China and that we buy back from China as newly produced goods, why don't we produce it here? That is the whole system, is that you've got a foreign entity similar to a parasite sitting on top of Australian soil, sucking it dry. But we are responsible for that. We created that. We consented to that. But we can change it. We can take that contract and rescind it, cancel the contract, create a new trust, and in that case, we will be looking at the next document, which is very interesting, with the steps of how to do that.
Now, I believe you have in your possession a very important document in the form of a printed letter that arrived into your email inbox. This relates to your questions or concerns to a number of organisations around the world pertaining to your belief that there is no law.
There is no law. Absolutely, you're correct. Yes.
You had, shall we say, a lot of difficulty getting any response whatsoever from anyone. However, you did receive one reply, which I believe was actually quite a lengthy email that did, to a fair extent, answer your questions or concerns.
It didn't answer my questions and didn't address any of my concerns whatsoever. But I'll quickly go into a little bit of background about it, and it's quite a powerful thing that happened in my life.
Yes.
Just quick background. I had a bird, which has got nothing to do with this story.
A pet bird?
A pet bird, a little parrot. Little
Yes.
Connie. It was very sweet. His name was Sweetie. And this bird had the habit of on and off, when you just touch him and stroke his head and scratch him and whatever, he would just give you a nip and he'd bite. It was bloody sore. And then obviously, once he's misbehaved, we put him back in his cage. But we got him as a mistreated bird, as a pet, from somebody that didn't want him anymore. And every single time we put this bird back in his cage, he would say two words. As he gets onto his little perch, he would say, "Fuck this." So obviously he's bitten the previous people so many times that he actually learned the behavior. So he would bite you, he'll say, "Oh hell, this isn't on." You put him in his cage and he hops onto his little perch and he puffs himself up and says, "Fuck this." So I got to a stage where I said, "Fuck this." Something is wrong. Something is obviously, if the bird, those are the wisest words I've ever heard, came from a bird. So I just said, okay, let's have a good look at the system and let's see what the hell is going on. And I wrote a series of documents and questions and reported crimes. If I say crimes, wow, not your normal crime. Things that you know in the world that's happening right all the time. Today, in Australia, what's happening in Australia? How come there's a foreign entity in control of this country, beautiful country, that's a corporation operating under commerce, not law, and the colour of law as a private American company running people's lives. Everybody getting up every day, working, money, taxes, and then they die. And then that gets monetized, it never bloody ends. So I said, let's end this thing, let's see where this thing goes. So I reported these crimes, and I said to them, once they're made aware of the crimes, they become complicit by doing nothing about it. And I'm going to just read off this a bit, which is all I have to do. So all the institutions and individuals are now complicit, including the ones that replied, except that one of them didn't reply but gave a solution, but will do nothing about the crimes themselves. as they confirmed to me that there is absolutely no law whatsoever. So out of a number of institutions, and I didn't expect any of them to give a shit, because normally what they do, they take whatever you give them, they put it in the bin or the paper shredder, and they just vacate, and life goes on. They will never fess up or take liability. Now these guys didn't take on the liability either. But what happened, which I did not expect, is that there's going to be a reply, and I didn't expect the reply to be what it was. So it's rather complex, and I'll read off the names and not the details, because it's addresses and irrelevant information for the sake of the exercise, to show that there's nobody out there that cares or will do anything whatsoever to protect anybody. No government, no court, no organization, and definitely no law. There is no law. It's something that we really need to let it sink in. There's only commerce, and there's only commerce in contract, and there's only contract by consent. So what I'm saying is that there might be one law which is consent law, but it's up to you to decide whether that law applies to your life or not. But that's the only law. There's nothing else. There's commerce and there's consent, and this is it. So okay, so we wrote to the Director General of the Universal Postal Union. All right, they are somewhere in Bern, Switzerland. Then we wrote to His Holiness Pope Francis. Okay, we all know who that is. Then I wrote to Callan and Rogers, the Senior Registrar of the High Court of Australia. I wrote to the Registrar of the Brisbane Magistrates Court. I wrote to Australian Government Solicitors. That's the group that does all the prosecutions on behalf of the state. If you've got shit with the traffic fund, you'll have Australian Government Solicitors as the prosecution. I wrote to them. I wrote to the International Criminal Court, which is in The Hague, in the Netherlands. And then I thought it's not such a bad idea to let Interpol know, because they're supposedly the international organization policing the planet and telling, you know, everybody what's right and what's wrong. So let's chat to them as well. And then to an interesting group called the Tort Division. Now, not many people know about the Tort Division, but you can Google it.
Tort as in T-O-R-T.
T-O-R-T. Tort law. Tort law is an interesting aspect of law. I'm not a lawyer. I can't say much about it. You can talk to the Tort Division directly. But yet tort law is a fascinating aspect of law. And there's a thing called a tort division, which means that if there's a crime committed, and it's really a problem, you do not go to the police, because they will do nothing about the crime. They're operating in commerce. They can only find somebody guilty, take them to a court, impose a prison sentence, which becomes a prison bond, which gets commercialized, or they can get somebody that goes to court, pays a fine, found guilty of the crime, and then that fine gets commercialized. And how that commercialization works is they take the instrument, which becomes a debt instrument, your signature is on it, that's converted into a bond, and that gets floated into the stock exchange as currency to create more public debt. And this is the system we trapped in, called fiat currency. But it's all in commerce, not in law. Anyway, so here we go. I replied to all these guys. I sent them this letter and I said, okay, what are you guys going to do about it? Now, out of it, some of the interesting replies from the only institution that bothered to reply. They missed the point completely about whether law exists or not. But they replied with more than I expected. Now, in the reply, the way that they did, they told me there is no law, but they couldn't spell it out. But the way they put it across, it became very, very clear that there's only one thing, which is commerce. Okay, so here we go. The first bit came that, if I'm understanding this correctly, now this is somebody writing to me in an email. You want to do something about government entities using your name, the name in all caps, to create accounts to make money in commerce and make you responsible for violating their company employee bylaws, statutes and regulations that they call law. Interesting. First, unless you created the My Name Trust as the creator, and you are a trustee, or you are a beneficiary, which is who we all are, you cannot liquidate any accounts or take possession of anything belonging to the trust. if you have property that is in the public name attached to a social security number or debtor's employee identification number, then according to the law, now here they mention the word law, you only have the right to possess them because your original birth certificate contracted ownership of your property to the government for privileges. Not rights, privileges. Even though you did not personally do it, or that it was done by a means of fraud, does not change it when you claim to know the truth. Bloody hell. Okay, so it was done by means of fraud. That's quite clear, now we know the truth. But there's shit all you can do about it, the fact that you know the truth. Because it doesn't...
You've discovered the truth too late?
No. It doesn't change the system whatsoever whether it was fraud or not. Because there's no law. Okay. This is what they're telling us.
So they cannot be prosecuted for fraud?
No. It is a contract that has not been disputed.
Yes.
A fraudulent contract that has not been disputed since its creation, 3 days after you were born. That's when the hospital bond got sold and got created, before the child got registered. You must prove that the contract is fraud, and you must do it yourself and undo it. And part of that, and this is very interesting, is getting an administrative court decision to agree with you that you can handle your own affairs. In other words, you must prove yourself. So, there we go. It's an administrative court decision. It doesn't mean it's a court order. It seems to be a decision made outside of court. So this looks to me like something called a private settlement, or something very similar.